Welcome to Shockaholic, where we discuss the shocking sides of cinema. Today I'm going to be talking about the 2020 Shudder original, Host. Now this movie has been taking the internet by storm lately, as well it should. It revolves around a whole group of friends who decide to go onto Zoom, and well, I don't really want to spoil what they're up to because I actually felt that that was quite some good drama or tension that they were building, is the intrigue of trying to figure out what was happening at the beginning of the film. But let's just say they are on a Zoom chat and things take a very dark turn. The film is directed by Rob Savage with all of the wonderful talent that's on display in just a span of about 12 weeks. So as you can imagine, everybody's up in arms about how pretty brilliant this movie is for the short amount of time that it was made. Now, keeping in mind that this was also filmed on Zoom, within quarantine, about the people who were doing things during quarantine, and it's even more poignant and it's even more original. So Host is kind of like a take on Unfriended. I don't know if you've seen that one, but if you have, that's a found footage film in which you have a bunch of teens who are on a kind of Skype call in which a spirit or a demonic entity starts taking them out one by one and things go really, really bad. Host is very similar to this, but has quite a few twists along the way that make it really unique, and of course, it's very topical for 2020. It does indeed reference the quarantine, it does indeed reference the coronavirus, and of course it references the fact that people are stuck at home and the only means of communication that they tend to have is through Zoom. And it also attacks the only safe space that we have right now, and the only space that we really are allowed to be in, our own homes. I found this movie incredibly effective, so I'm just going to go straight into the review. As ever, I'm going to start with a spoiler-free review, and then I'm going to go into our after-hours section, where I'm going to talk a little bit more in a detailed manner. Talk about some spoilers, but also just to talk about a bit about what we can learn about this. I'm really interested in sharing with you guys a little bit more about what we can see in a horror movie, how can we evaluate the quality or value of a horror film, because sure, good and bad may have some subjective tastes here and there, but there is an objective side to it as well, and I feel that a movie is good or bad based on what we can take away from it, you know? What is there that helps the horror genre as a whole. And I think there's quite a bit of that in Host. So yeah, to get straight to it, I felt that Host was a pretty brilliantly effective and really tense movie, actually. The thing I think that it did the best, and I think a lot of you would agree with me on this one, a lot of found footage movies, especially in the modern era of found footage, have a tendency to kind of create a larger-than-life, kind of Hollywood-style version of reality. So whereas it started with films like The Blair Witch Project, and even if you go down about a decade after that, you have Paranormal Activity, these movies had a tendency to try and make things as realistic as they possibly could in terms of using the actors' names, using tech that would be available to a general audience, or at least trying to explain away why they had the tech, why they were there in the first place, and then also playing on the chaos of more home video style filmmaking. Unfortunately, I feel that a lot of found footage movies that came after Paranormal Activity really went into this scope and landscape that basically felt like, what would it be like to record a home video inside the world of a movie? Everything is polished. Everything tends to be a little over the top. Everybody has really good makeup and hair all the time. You see houses that people can't even afford. They don't interact the way people do. You always have these friend circles in which you have different types of demographics or tropes or just personalities and stereotypes that exist within them that don't really necessarily exist in real life. And I think that Host did a phenomenal job trying to make everybody look like they were a cohesive group of friends. Nobody seemed to have this really big dramatic story that you needed to be paying attention to. No, it focuses on the story that it's trying to tell. It's only 50 minutes long, so I'd say with titles at the end of it, you know, the end credits, it's probably a nice, neat hour or so, which is still feature length, by the way. Feature length, if I recall correctly, is officially 40 minutes. Might be 45, so please don't quote me on that, but 40 to 45 minutes is officially feature length, and you wouldn't think it with the movies that we get nowadays. We're all exposed to these 3-hour-long epics, and yeah, you know, I love the fact that they decided to go bold and make a shorter film, but not just a shorter film, a very short, compact, tight thing that really gets to the point. And boy howdy, I love how it gets to the point. It just goes straight for the jugular and it doesn't stop. It has effective scares. It has a great use of the actual medium that they're filming with as well. It uses zoom in a realistic way. That's another thing that a movie, say like Unfriended, what bothers me in a film like that is they emulate something that we're familiar with, but they always make a kind of fictionalized version of it. So it's not entirely familiar. It doesn't entirely work the way that we would expect it to work. It works in the way that they need it to work. Where zoom is zoom. If you use zoom, you know zoom. And they actually use zoom. They make sure that it is zoom. They make sure it looks like zoom. They do not hide the fact that this is zoom. As such, they use zoom in the way that you and I would use zoom, which is perfect. This is how found footage should work. Found footage should be something that is a medium, a film that gets under your skin because it could have been you. Could have been just this wrong place, wrong time kind of filmmaking, just like the Blair Witch Project. I think that Host did a great job with this. I can't say enough praises for it, actually. I think that if you haven't checked it out, you really should be on Shudder right now checking out Host. The hype is real, guys. Normally, if a film comes out and everybody goes, it's the scariest film I've ever seen, or it's the hit of the summer, I get instantly turned off by those movies. I would say Veronica is the biggest example of this. When that one came out on Netflix, not only was I deeply underwhelmed when I saw it, I was also not hyped at all right before seeing it because people kept giving it this praise that it could never live up to. Host, I think, really lives up to some of the hype. All the hype, I'm not too sure about that. I mean, what scares people is subjective. So will this movie scare you? I don't know. I think that it might. I think that it should. If you engage with horror the way I do and the way most horror people and fans do, it will. It's a definite film that's capable of frightening you. Again, my whole purpose of this part of the review is to not spoil too much, so I will just say this in a succinct way. Host is a film that really cares about horror, that has really paid attention to horror, and also knows the tropes. So it has a lot of familiarity there. If you love horror films, if you know horror films, and you want to see something that is aimed at telling you that, hey, we're here, we love what you do, because we're doing it, and we're doing it in a way to show you that we love it too, watch Host. I think that's exactly why it's as powerful as it is, and why people love it the way that they do, is because it's a film that is made by fans, in a sense. It's made by people who really appreciate the medium, and who wanted to share that with other fans. And I'm very thankful that Shudder picked this one up. Really great job. All the cast members do a great job, so the acting is top-notch, very believable. There's something deeply effective, too, by having all of the faces on screen. When Unfriended came out, they had a tendency to show the large screen at the top, like a Skype call, and on the bottom you had the other smaller images. This one's a Zoom chat, though, so you got everybody in this kind of Brady Bunch style, and you see them all at the same size. And every now and then we do zoom in to get some more drama, or so you can really look at the details of what's going on. But most of the action takes place in a way that you can see everybody, and I think that's very effective. To see somebody kind of nervous about something or just showing a point of view while the rest are grabbing their faces and looking terrified, and they create this sensation of you should be paying attention or you should be very scared to be paying attention. And as for the scares, I think there are some very, very effective moments in this movie. The graphics team did a fantastic job trying to make everything look as seamless as possible. I love to hear that these actresses were doing all of their stunts and learning them from a distance. A lot of them got to learn about prosthetics and putting those together. It's great. It's great on so many levels. It's great on the level of the product that was made, but it's also great on the level of how it was made and the experience that the people who made this movie got to have while making it. The skills that were put on display and the skills that were learned, great stuff. Very happy for everybody involved. The success that this movie has gotten is well-deserved. Extremely happy for them. And I love the fact that they were very kind people, too. If you ever go on Twitter, you should check it out. Rob Savage is just going around retweeting everybody, high-fiving, thumbs-upping, liking things. They're actually interacting with people. And those are the people that we need to be supporting. So please continue to support independent filmmakers, because it's very important that we support the people who have the passion for the films. You don't need to be making a movie to make money. If you're doing that, then I think that your whole focus is in the wrong place. Sure, you should want to make a marketing campaign around a product that you've created, but to create the product solely for that, it doesn't really feel right for me. And I think a lot of filmmakers have gotten into that direction because they're owned by bigger studios. But before then, you can see the passion of what they are trying to make. And Host is one of those movies that you really wouldn't think that it was a smaller production company that put it together. So, great job, guys. All right, so it's time. Welcome to After Hours. We're going to talk a little bit about some spoilers, and like I said, I want to discuss this in a way of how we can learn from the film, or what we can learn from the film. So if you have seen Host, which I really hope you have if you're here in this section of the review, you will be aware of then the fact that they have the seance, and that there is this demonic entity who goes by the name of Jack, because that's the name that Gemma gave it, that he's going around and picking them off one by one. What I loved about this film that I think we can learn from was the use of horror tropes. Now, I discussed this in my previous review with La Llorona in 2020. The way that La Llorona uses tropes was to show horror in the sphere of drama, or in the political drama, I should say, in the real world horrors that we deal with every day. So all the supernatural stuff was done in a more muted, kind of almost kindly kind of way. Host is a more straight up scare fest kind of a film, but what it does super well is it doesn't rely on cheap scares. I can only recall on one cheap scare throughout the entire film, and that was at the beginning of the movie. It's when Haley picks up her laptop and she's walking around the apartment when she's alone, and then her closet opens up and things fall out. That's the only one. And they do a callback to that at the end. But for the rest, I think they managed to make sure that the scares are always something that it's tangible. You know, it always represents Jack. Jack is always doing something. When they show the face filters, for instance, they're not really there to scare you at first. It's just, hey, look at me, I have a filter on. And then later, of course, when we see Jack's clown face just floating in midair, well, there you go. You're using it that way. So I think that this is another example of a filmmaker that has taken all of these tropes and makes another kind of meta film, so yet another style of meta commentary, in which they use the tropes to the most effective way possible. Like I said in my spoiler-free section, this is more like a love letter. It's a film that is made to celebrate horror films, and I think that that's clear in every single set piece and scare that they created. There are so many references to Paranormal Activity, there are references to the Blair Witch Project, there are references to Unfriended, there are references to movies beyond the found footage genre, and for that I am incredibly grateful that they did so. I'm also deeply impressed with the level of skill on display in terms of the acting. I said before, they have more realistic performances. The mere fact that you're in each actor's bedrooms and houses and apartments is pretty nice, because you finally get to see a more realistic depiction of the houses that people have in life, especially at that age. It doesn't really feel like they're in a condo for no reason. If somebody was and had a nicer house, well, hey, they just happen to have a nicer house, and the other characters kind of comment on this. So I felt that was kind of a cool touch to everything. What else I found was really cool about it was the fact that the synergy between everybody was smooth. We really focused on Jack and his deal and things going on there. We didn't really rely on external storylines. If something was happening between different characters in the past, it's inferred, it's kind of referenced. I've seen some people talk on Twitter about how it seemed like Gemma and Haley had some sort of tension at the beginning of the film, which is called back at the end of the film when Gemma goes to check up on her. And I love that, because that tension was performed. It wasn't stated. It wasn't, oh, Gemma, I'm still mad at you, or anything like that. We don't know anything. Oh, Gemma, why did you kiss my boyfriend? None of this. We have no idea what was annoying Haley so much, other than maybe she just didn't want Gemma to be a part of the seance, which, lo and behold, it's because of Gemma that everything goes wrong. In terms of scares, this film just is so good at them. At one point, I even screamed out loud, which is a very hard thing for a film to make me do. And I mean like a guttural, like, ah, kind of scream. It's when Jack pops out on the stairwell. Fantastic. I love the makeup and the design of Jack, and just all the inventive little ways they found to make him manifest. Things exploding, things moving around, him actually being there. I think showing the monster was a very good choice, because one of my criticisms of, say, Paranormal Activity, of those 4 or 5 films, I have not seen the later 2 films, but 1 through 3 I did see. They don't show the demon. They show outlines, they show feet, they show all kinds of little glimpses of, but I love that Jack was just there and being creepy. You know, either he was the manifestation of the story, so he was hanging, or he was just this horrible, nasty thing. I loved it so much. Now, you probably noticed I don't really have any negatives to give you, and that's because there aren't really any to have. The movie's so quick and tight and to the point that the negative here is that it's a found footage movie. If you don't like found footage movies, if you don't like digital POV style films, this is not going to be one for you. But if you can really stomach it, or if you can get past it, please check it out, because you're missing out on a bit of horror history. You know, this one's really just... it's really special on so many levels. It's really special that this is showing you the power of just picking up a camera, in this case going on Zoom, getting some talent, putting them all together, and letting them do their thing, not having a studio get in the way, not having writers get in the way. You had 3 writers for this film, and they did a phenomenal job making everybody look as natural as possible. You could tell that this was a collaboration, and there need to be more movies like this. Also, kudos to them for using Zoom as the end credits. I think that was like the quirkiest, coolest little choice. I at first thought, okay, we're waiting for something to happen, and I looked closely as they're showing these names, and I thought this was like a friends list or something. It's like, oh, these are all the people that Jack's looking for and is going to go kill, and I'm like, no, it's the cast list. Excellent. Absolutely excellent. I also want to talk about that final scare. The humor in this film is so good. The movie knows what it is, the movie knows where it comes from, the movie knows who's watching it. So the best part about it, it's a movie about the internet, it's a movie that uses a lot of these found footage tropes, but it also uses just general horror discourse and tropes. And so at the end, you get this classic jump scare of this just demonic face, this flat, shitty looking pixelated image that just shows up. The image and scare that we have had since the 1990s on the internet. I absolutely love that. So thank you to whoever on your team thought of that scare, the amount of people that might have thought of it, or the singular person. Thank you so much for that scare. It was great. It was absolutely great. It's taken me a while to get to this review, and it's been on my mind ever since. It's been a few days since I've seen it, so if I'm not as detailed as I was with La Llorona, there's been a bit of distance, but still, it's just every day this movie has stuck with me. And I'm very grateful for that. We needed a movie like this, and we need more movies like this. So please, please, support independent filmmakers, support small horror films, and support good horror films. What makes this movie good, as I was trying to say before, is that the scares are not cheap, the story sticks to its point, and it creates tension, and it uses the language of horror cinema to give you something effective and to never deviate from its story while it is doing. It's 50 minutes of perfect, crafted, focused storytelling. And so for that, I couldn't be any more grateful. Just like I'm grateful for you guys watching this video. Thank you so much as ever for watching. I wish that you all have a nice, safe time at home. And please be careful on Zoom. Till next time, keep shocking.